What's going on, y'all? So today's guest is Leah Dee. She's the host of the podcast Least of These, and she covers the cases that no one talks about. So I need to mention first that I actually didn't record the video for the first 20 minutes. So you'll hear the audio. You just won't see the video on YouTube. But we got the rest of it down. We had a great conversation talking about missing people, human trafficking, to our faith in Christ. And it was a great conversation. I love talking to her, and I hope you all love listening to it. And here she is, Leah Dee.
It's my foundation. It's my faith. It's my work ethic. It's my drive. It's everything that I've tried to build for myself that has made me who I am.
I'll do what it takes to make you believe.
And that's like when you do the podcast like you do too, like it seems like it takes a lot of like investigative things. Or do you work with the families? Like how does go into like how that works?
Okay, so it depends on the case. Some of them, like I couldn't do a case every week with the family because there's so much that goes into it, and I don't stop like just with the podcast. So I still work with my families with whatever they need. So there's weeks where I just do investigative cases, and there's weeks where I work with families. Like this past week was just an investigative case. So it's still like work. I mean, it's like for 30 minutes of content, you're talking like 80 hours of research. So it's a lot.
So is this just something that you do for fun, or do you have like a job on the side, or what?
Okay, so I used to work about 6 jobs altogether, probably. I've quit everything, and we're just hoping that the podcast will take off. Well, I don't really hope. I know it will. I'm a victim advocate here, so I don't charge families for that.
Right.
So that was one way that I thought that I could make the two worlds meet and, be able to support families full time and be able to quit some jobs. So I took the leap in February and quit 2 of them. So I'm hoping it works out. I think it will, though.
No, that's awesome. That's cool that you can do that.
Yeah. Well, my husband, he's been in the military for 17 years. So, I mean, we have a 2-income household, so I'm able to do that. But yeah, finally he was like, you just can't do all these things at once. And this is what you're passionate about. So you just need to do it. So it was awesome that he was supportive, and he's just like, yeah, quit him. Like, whatever.
Yeah. What got you started in this kind of podcast in the first place?
Okay. So, I've been helping families probably for about 4 years. There's a huge disconnect between police and crime victim families.
Yeah.
So that's how I got started. It was really to be a liaison between the two, because I grew up around law enforcement, never been a cop, none of that, but I grew up around cops. And so I was really good at communicating with them and going on behalf of the families and kind of, taking the family through the steps that you need to do. So like when you have a loved one go missing, or you have someone in your family murdered, you don't know what to do unless you've been there before. And so since I knew, I could just kind of walk them through. So I wanted to do something, since that's what I'm passionate about. It's just like with Taylor Gruwell's case, I was able to help her family while working on the podcast. So it just kind of both worlds collided. And I met Heather from Big Mad True Crime on Jessica Van Zandt Dietzel's case. So that's a local case in Albany. Jessica's been missing since February 18th of 2020. And I represent her family. Heather contacted me and wanted to do the story. So we went through the story together. And then she's like, why aren't you doing this? I was like, it's something I've always wanted to do. I just didn't know how to get started. And she's like, it's just as simple. Just do it. So we did. And I sent her the first episode I recorded. And I remember her calling me, and my phone rang immediately as soon as I had sent it. So I knew it was her telling me no, you know what, Leah, you don't have it. You just need to move on. But it wasn't. She was freaking out oh my God, you did so good. So she really helped me a lot. And I actually just signed with her media company last week.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
That's great. Yeah, it's crazy. And in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think my first episode dropped February 1st. So until now. And then I signed with them.
Okay. And how do you go about doing finding these cases and stuff?
A lot of them are suggestions. or I see a family who needs help. Like in Taylor's case, I worked on Mercedes' case first, and they were friends. Mercedes is missing, and without making an accusation here, but I mean, I'll just go ahead. Taylor's death is very suspicious. No one has been charged, but it's very suspicious. And so I was working with Mercedes' family, and they told me about Taylor. So I reached out to her family. And then sometimes families reach out to me. I've been with Missing Persons Cases Network as an admin for a while. And so we have a lot of families of missing people reach out because they're just unsure of what to do. So.
Right. So how did you hear, so I'm guessing my cousin and my aunt reached out to you. Is that how you got a hold of my Uncle Jake's case?
So me and Rachel are friends. We met on Jessica's case, actually. So Rachel has been a huge supporter on Jessica's case. So I knew Rachel and I kind of knew the story. But when she really started telling me, I was just blown away. Like it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember exactly. I was actually at a bodybuilding show. I was backstage in my Speedo, sitting down eating chicken and rice, and I look at my phone, and my sister texted me and said, that my Uncle Jake was murdered. I was like, what? It's one of those things where you remember the time and place you were at. And I only met him a couple times, but I'll tell you what, every single time he had you laughing and on the floor. Him and my Uncle Steve, when they hooked up, it was just nonstop laughter.
It's been wild to meet the whole family and kind of get to know Jake through the family. So I've talked to Yvonne a lot and Rachel and Will. But just the lack of investigation, I guess, was the biggest thing in Jake's case. And so we knew by telling the story, I mean, at this point, she's convicted, she's in prison, and she'll rot there, rightly so. But by telling the story, there are families just like yours that are out of options. If they had not gotten a private investigator, she would still be out. I mean, she would still be doing whatever. So the fight that they put up, and the way that he was able to go, like I've looked over cases before and I was shocked at what, Lee took literally a handful of photographs and a couple pages of a police report. And he went from there. And it just goes to show that, there should be no end to an investigation. So if you can't prove one way or the other, this person did this, and they couldn't, the cops couldn't because they didn't investigate it. So, you shouldn't stop. And he's the prime example of just hard work. And I mean, he just went in there and he tracked down every lead. And that was amazing to see. So in Jake's case, you see both sides. You see the cops who don't do their job. And I'm sorry, they didn't. They just didn't.
Oh, no.
And then you see Lee, who went above and beyond. And you saw that, the truth prevailed and you guys got justice for Jake.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is just luckily, my Aunt Yvonne has the money to find and have a private investigator, but there are families that go through the similar things and they don't have that, so then they just have to deal with what's handed to them,
right.
and just hope that someone will find out about the case or something like that. And those are the kind of things I just hate, because to hear that their investigation and their, they called it a suicide within 38 minutes just blew my mind.
Right. If you would have saw the police report, I was just like, this is it. Like, where's the rest of it? And Lee's like, that's it. And I was like, I've seen more of a police report done on literally anything, like someone breaking into your house. I've seen a more lengthy investigation. And so that's the thing with the podcast too. I mean, right now, I'm small, but I have connections. So if there's a family, we can figure something out. There are private investigators all the time who do work for free. And so they'll take a case each year, that kind of thing. And there are retired cops. There's people that are willing to help. It's just getting people in touch with those people. So, I mean, it's just like a network, and there needs to be more, and there needs to be more awareness that, sometimes the police mess up. I'm a huge supporter of police. Don't get me wrong. I work with them every day. They're amazing people, but just like any other profession, you have great cops and you have bad cops. You have good teachers, you have bad teachers. And sometimes it's just the luck of the draw.
Yeah, and the thing is too is just you see it a lot in those small counties, the small towns, you know what I mean, where they think they can get away with it, that the lazy, investigative stuff. And to me, it's just sad to see that, and it's just not fair.
No, it's so unfair because you see, like, just in his case, you see two separate investigations. You see how it should have been done, and you see how it was handled. And I think in Jake's case, they weren't prepared. They didn't have the proper training. There were certain things that it was just, the perfect storm for that to happen. And I do believe wholeheartedly in my heart, if your family had not fought so hard and got her put away, we would be talking to a whole nother family. It would have happened again because she thought she got away with it. And,
Yeah, I mean, 100%.
she almost did.
Yeah, exactly. And this has always been my problem is I've always thought cops need to be held to a higher standard. So there shouldn't be like, oh, we weren't prepared for this. We weren't trained for this. You know what I mean?
Right.
That shouldn't even be in question. You should be trained for so many different things. Yeah.
You shouldn't be showing up on a death scene unprepared. And that's what happened. So, I mean, yeah, because, every family is just as important as the next. So like, that's their loved one. Jake was your loved one, but I mean, it could have been anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I'm not even a huge, I don't have the education and stuff like that, but I watch like all the serial killer documentaries or like missing persons. Like not too long ago, they had the Madeleine McCann, story that came out on Netflix, and like I sat through that whole thing. I was like, "What?" I was sitting there trying to figure it out because she's been missing forever.
Oh, a long time, there's nothing on that case. She's just gone,
right?
And that's with a lot of missing people.
Yeah, and then it took, whatever country they were in, that those cops weren't doing their job, and then years pass, and then the people are starting to think the parents did it because they're not showing emotion. I'm like, well, it's been years since it happened. Like, how much emotion do they have left?
Right. At some point, you're just like like you are. You're just like I work with missing people's families all the time. And at some point, you don't have anything left. I mean, there's that initial time where you go nuts and you're out tracking every lead and you're on the phone and you're doing this, and then as time goes on and the leads dry up, I mean, what else are you supposed to do?
Hey guys, let's take a break for a second. Just want to talk to you about Strong Tower Nutrition, my supplement store. If you go to stnutrition.com, you'll find brands like Giant, from NutriKey to Run Everything Labs to Black Market Labs. Guys, these are brands that you don't find in these supplement stores. If you spend over $25, you'll get your free shipping when you get your supplements. So go to stnutrition.com. And as always, if you spend over $25, you get your free shipping. If you type in the promo code STRONG, STRONG, all podcast listeners gets 10% off your order. Go to stnutrition.com today. Check us out. Have you had any good come from any of your podcasts, like someone being found or anything like that?
We have had positive movement in several cases, I would like to think. Not as positive as I would like it to be.
Right.
But we're getting there. I mean, we have only been around since February, so it's a short time, but we have seen some forward progress. Sometimes the podcast can put pressure to make police do what they need to do. So, I mean, there's certain things I can't discuss, but yeah, we've seen some real positive movement in a couple cases.
No, that's awesome, because it's great to see that, that you're putting all this time in for a reason.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I don't ever want to just tell someone's story to just be, telling us a bad story or do this for entertainment. This is not entertainment to me. This is something I'm passionate about. So I always want to make, there's a reason behind it, even if the case is solved. So in Jake's case, it's solved, but it's teaching people that, okay, when you're out of options, a private investigator is an option, or even here are the signs to look for, because there were signs in Jake's case, but you don't see those signs unless you know them, right? Like you just don't. And no one wants to believe someone's that evil. They just, I mean, it's not on your radar, but those people exist. And the scary thing is they don't look that evil. I mean, she doesn't. She looks like a normal person.
Mm-hmm.
She's not, but she does.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a scary thing too. Is that,
Yeah.
and that's why, it's great to think, that there's great people out there and people are good and to trust people and stuff like that. But, like things I've been through in my life, like it's very hard for me to put that kind of trust in someone, and sometimes I just have an instinct,
Right.
where
Never ignore that. Never, ever, ever ignore that.
Right. Like for example, we had this guy come to my house and he has to see like my camera video because there was a complaint about someone going around my neighborhood. And so after I closed the door, my wife was like, "Oh, did you ask for his badge or anything?" I was like, "No, I just knew he was a cop." Because he was in an unmarked car. And but I could tell by his just the way he was standing. I could tell around his belt. He had his radio going on. I was listening to his radio to hear what they were saying. So it was just like if someone was really trying to fake it, they went through a lot. If he was really.
Yeah.
So then we called the information hotline for the police or whatever, and they said, "Yeah, we have someone there." I was like, so we felt good about it. But
I've seen people go through a lot of lengths to fake it. There was this guy one time, and he had a whole car with a radio and everything in it, and was not a cop. So be careful.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the times too where my instincts, I felt like I was okay,
Yeah.
But there's been times where I'm just like,
No, I think that is the scariest part is that you think that you're going to see a monster and you think that's what you're going to see. But in a lot of these cases, the monster doesn't look like what you think the monster looks like. And with missing people, most of the time, the statistics prove that, they're missing from a person who knew them. This is not some stranger came in the middle of the night. This is someone they knew.
It's hard to think, like, how do you stop something like that? Because if it's from someone you knew, it could just keep happening over and over.
Yeah. I mean, just be careful who you trust. And then I don't know. There's no way, that I can see to stop it. These people, they just exist among us. And sometimes you don't know. Like, I really feel like looking over Jake's case, he had no clue.
Oh, yeah.
He had no idea how evil she was because he couldn't think that way. You know what I'm saying? Like that would never cross his mind.
Right. And also I think he was one of those like very trusting people and, things like that. Didn't think anyone would do anything bad to him. That kind of thing,
Right. Yeah. I just think like he would never do that. So he couldn't imagine someone doing that. And it's just the way she did it was so evil and so behind his back. And so it didn't exist in his world. He's just a regular guy, a good guy, a funny guy. Everybody says that. Like I've had a couple people message me actually with funny stories and, that used to work with him, and he was an honest guy. And I don't think lying was in his nature. So he just didn't see it coming. So I want to warn people to pay attention,
Oh yeah, definitely. With your podcast, is it hard not to like say your opinion and how you feel about it?
Sometimes it's really hard. So there's a little bit of opinion in there every now and then.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's I have to watch my mouth sometimes because I could say a few choice words about a few folks.
Oh, right. Yeah. Depending on what it was and how I felt about it and how mad it got me, I don't know if I could do something like that because also you have to, I guess if it's already been through court and all that stuff, you don't have to be too like, with the legal jargon and stuff like that, right?
Right. Yeah. There's a couple cases where, I'm positive something happened, but I have to say allegedly, or I can't, there's information that I can't say because it hasn't been released yet. And, sometimes that's hard. It's hard. And then sometimes it's hard not to just go off on a string of expletives about somebody because what they did was so disgusting or evil, or, it's hard sometimes. And I get emotionally involved. Like, I think that's the other thing that people don't understand is that I meet a lot of these families. So, I learn and I see how years after they're still affected. I see how the mothers of my missing girls, every day is hell for them. And so it's hard. It's unavoidable to get emotionally attached. I mean, it just is, because you fall in love with them through their parents, through their little girl. One of my girls that's missing from here, Jessica Van Zant Dietzel. I mean, I've literally held her child in my arms. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating sometimes.
But one thing I wanted to know was like your mindset going through these cases, especially with like missing children, since you have children of your own. Like how does that affect you? How does that affect you mentally?
It's tough. I have to make sure that I have an outlet or do something fun. Like sometimes I'm surrounded by bad news and bad things and bad people. But not just because of the podcast. So I volunteer in the community doing things. And I definitely have to step back sometimes and take, a day, an hour. The other day it just got rough. I was going through a case. There was some stuff going on here locally. And so, we just went and took my kids, walked around a pond, had a snack. I have to make sure that there's certain things that I do, because I mean, there have been weeks where it has been rough because you just, you're constantly talking to grieving families whose loved ones are missing, mothers of children who are missing. And it takes its toll, because no matter how hard you say, okay, I'm not going to get emotionally attached. When you hear a mother cry for her child, there's no way not to get emotionally attached.
Right. I don't know what it is about watching a dad cry, because when a dad cries, it's something serious. So when I watch a movie or if I watch a documentary or something like that and I see the dad cry, like I immediately start tearing up.
That's rough. And I've worked with a couple dads. So, and the dad is like the strong figure. So when he breaks down, it's rough. But I love to be that person that they feel like they can talk to, because, I don't just do the podcast and move on. Mm-hmm. So I'm still in touch with my families. We still talk. I still push for things on their cases. So, we're in constant contact. And while I love that, being able to talk to them, because sometimes it's as simple as, let's just talk about your kid, because nobody else wants to. If your kid's been murdered or your kid's missing, I don't think people know how to react, and they don't know how to feel that. So, it's like we can't talk about it. And if it's one thing that I've heard from my families over and over for how people can support them, is just talk about their kid. Yeah. I mean, they still have great memories. Their whole life wasn't just that one moment. So, a lot of times they feel ostracized and like they can't talk about it because it makes other people sad. And it's sad, but there's also all these great memories that they want to talk about. So, I mean, that would be if you didn't ask for advice. So here's my unsolicited advice.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know what I would do in that situation. I mean, I just saw a story the other day. I don't know if you've seen it. The lady that killed her 2 kids. And one was 7, I think, like the older daughter, she stabbed her 50 times.
Wow.
And the young infant, it said she disemboweled him.
Are you talking about Sarah Gano?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I was just researching that case. That's going to be in the future.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Because that made me sick to my stomach. I was like,
And
then she just tells her husband that, hey, it's pretty bloody here.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
It's going to be bloody, but don't be sad. I think that was her
gosh.
Word. Like, yeah. The evil. I mean, I don't know how else you explain that. You can give mental health, you can say all these things, but I know people who struggle. I mean, I've struggled with mental health issues myself in the past. I think everybody at some point in their life has, but that takes evil, man. I mean, I have 2 kids. I can't imagine 50 times.
Yeah, I mean, and just to know, and that's something for me is a struggle when someone does something like that and all they do is have to spend life in jail. Um, I don't feel like that's enough for me.
Sometimes I feel that way, but then you don't want to become the monster, right?
That's true too. But
But
again,
I feel
it's
you. Sometimes you read that and you're like,
yeah,
yeah, I'd like to, string you by your toes and skin you alive. But then you're like, I mean, maybe we shouldn't do that.
right. You know, a lot of times I think like it should be eye for an eye. No matter like what you do to that person, it should get done to you.
Yep.
But
Yep.
you know, I know it's not how the world works, but I don't know.
Well, you don't want to
It's
become the
something tough,
monster.
right?
I guess that's
Exactly.
the only thing I could say about
That's
that. But I mean,
yeah.
I've thought of it. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean, we're all human, and when we see something like that, it's just nothing but, revenge comes to your mind.
Hmm.
But then once you start settling down and thinking about things, you're like, all right, let me be a bigger person.
Yeah. But I mean, hopefully, if she's guilty, she gets what she deserves and she
Yeah,
doesn't see the light of day because
yeah,
she's a danger. I mean, if you can do that to your own kid, um, I don't think you deserve to be walking the streets.
yeah, exactly. What else do these families go through? Like, are they continuously like looking all the time, like every single day, for their missing child?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Sometimes it's not so much like a physical search if
mm,
there's not a place, but I mean they're constantly talking to people, tracking down leads. You would be shocked if you knew the way that most police departments handle missing people. I'm sure you've heard it before. And I don't know what the solution is. I don't. The solution is that we take it seriously from the rip. But I have, Mercedes Clement. She's missing from Dallas, Texas. She's still in a want to locate status, which does not make her endangered missing, which does not, give the police the resources. And it's their fault she's in that status.
yeah,
They're the ones who put her there. But I mean, there are huge red flags in her case that something happened to her, and someone has harmed her. But we still have her in a want to locate status. Why is that? I mean, there's so much more that can be done. A lot of times, these missing families are out there doing this stuff on their own. I mean, her family has done an investigation larger than the police. It's the same for Jessica Van Zandt Dietzel's family. I mean, we were able to bring other agencies on that helped, but the initial agency that took the report, they kept telling her mom, mom, this is just addict behavior. She'll come home.
hmm,
But we knew it was different. We knew that she was missing, and she did live a higher risk lifestyle, but that doesn't make her any less more important to find. And we knew she was missing. Her mother knew, and the families know. You know what I'm saying? They know better than the police would know that, okay, this is for real this time. Like, she's not just off with her friend. She's just not off at a party. She's gone because, she had missed calling her daughter on her birthday. So, I mean, that was really the offset to her whole case, but it took forever and precious time is lost. And it's awful. But
yeah.
I mean, in the beginning, the investigators on that case were her parents, myself, and a small team because the cops weren't taking it serious.
Hmm. And why do you think that is? Is it because they have too much on their plate, or is it just because like they think there's no, there's nothing left to do?
I mean, I think a lot of times they just, we do have a drug problem in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times I think they write it off to that. The person's just off, they're an adult. They don't want to be found. But there's a huge difference. I mean, the families will know
Yeah.
it. And sometimes the person doesn't even have to be using drugs. They just, oh, they're an adult. And so that assumption is made. And I don't think we have the resources in any police department to handle the amount of people that go missing. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even know. Like, would you have to, like, should we like just hire like a different team to like handle those kind of things or like have that kind of stuff going on?
I do think we need more officers, and I
Yeah.
think we need more officers that are trained to specifically look for missing people.
Mm.
And to take it seriously. So, you've wasted all this time and surveillance video is overtaped and people forget what they saw, and it needs to be immediate. If the family, sure. And if there are any, I mean, we can't, obviously, if, someone goes to the grocery store and they're late, I mean, that's happened and people have reported to the police, but that's quickly resolved.
Yeah.
I mean, when you ain't heard from somebody for 3 or 4 days, it's pretty obvious. And then, when there's evidence that shows something bad has happened, we need to take it seriously immediately, because we would be able to find them a lot faster if we would just take it serious in the beginning.
Is it a higher percentage of missing person being found alive? Do you know?
I don't know the percentages, but we don't even know how many people we have missing. There's people who are missing right now that aren't reported. So, I mean, the statistics, they matter, but they don't.
Yeah, right.
Because we don't even know. There's people that we have no idea.
Because it's hard to think about too. When you think about the families and you think about, what was that girl's name that got taken from her room when I was younger? Elizabeth Smart.
Yeah.
My sister heard that story and she wouldn't sleep in her own room for years.
And that story is what nightmares are made of.
Yeah.
I mean, she was kept right there in the public view and she wasn't found for all that time.
Right. And that's one of the hardest things. And I forget, and luckily she was still alive. But, for a lot of people, like I was just listening to your last podcast and it just made me so angry.
That one's rough. Everlease?
Yeah, Everlease was tough. Just listening to how the cops didn't even like question the foster parents more than what they were, and no one even no one dug more into them. Are you kidding me?
And I mean, you have rights in this country. You don't have to cooperate with police, but I do think when it's a child's involved and you're talking about foster parents, you're not talking about this kid's biological parents. Foster parents should be held to a higher standard. And when a kid goes missing from your home, you need to cooperate. I mean, and they can't force them to. And I don't know what the solution is because I'm big on rights. So I think everybody does have rights in this country, but we've got to do better. And the years that have passed by with no word on what's happened to Everlease, it's insane.
Yeah, and I think there's because I'm a big believer in rights too, but I think also there's a line where like law enforcement can do something to push those rights back a little bit because they question your motives or your ability to be a foster parent or something like that. You know what I mean? Like they could have pushed a little bit harder.
Well, even in her case, if they just would have went off, their own standards, they wouldn't have been foster parents. I mean, they didn't complete required training. They had a child injured in their care. There were children that they just, didn't want to deal with. So they brought him back to the safe haven. I mean, 2 months prior to her disappearance, their license was renewed when it shouldn't have been. There was required training that wasn't completed. And so if we had just adhered to our own standards on that, Everlease may still be here with us, because she wouldn't have been placed with them.
Yeah, that's a shame too. And that's another thing I've always been iffy about is like foster parenting. Just because I know there's really good ones out there. Like, don't get me
They're
wrong.
amazing foster parents.
There's really good ones. And it turns out, they end up adopting the kid and they end up living great lives, But in the instance of, the bad ones, it just makes those kids even worse. And, it's just hard. It's a hard pill to swallow.
Well, you're taking a kid that's already at risk and you're preying on them. And to me, that takes a special kind of evil because, a kid doesn't end up in foster care because everything's wonderful.
Right.
They end up in foster care because they're already facing issues. So we really need to make sure we're vetting them. And I don't want anyone to think that, foster parents are amazing. The fact that they can take these kids into their home with those issues and love on these kids and heal their little broken hearts. And when it's done right, it's a beautiful thing. But those that take advantage of it, I mean, they're scum. So I don't know how else to say it.
No, you're right.
And that happens.
Like you said in it, like they weren't even supposed to be foster parents, like under the regulations and stuff like that,
Yeah, if we would just enforce our own laws, maybe, things like this wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I think that's the most frustrating part, as the law was already on the book, the rule was already there. It just wasn't followed. And why wasn't it followed?
Right. And I think in these kind of things, no one asks enough questions.
Right.
You know, everyone's just taking things as they are, or they're kind of guessing, or they're saying, oh, no, you know, we've seen stuff like this. It usually ends up like this. You know what I mean? Like when they saw my Uncle Jake, they saw, like, oh, that's a suicide. You know what I mean? Because they saw how it was. But it's just like, you don't know that someone didn't move that. You don't know if someone put that there. You don't know what happened.
Which, let me just say this about Jake's case. I saw I think there's 14 photographs that were taken. It's very obvious that was staged. And the fact that police didn't pick up on that. Now, granted, I do review cases. I do see crime scenes a lot. But I mean, we had experts. Don't listen to me because I'm just me. But Michael Knox, I mean, he's well known in the field, and he saw it. But to me, it was very basic. It's the fact that was overlooked and 38 minutes is the time that they took to investigate his case is insane, because it was obvious. It was obvious things were moved. It was obvious it was staged. That's piss poor training and a lack of, getting the job done. I mean, I think they just wanted to go home.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I don't even know if that was training. Like,
right? When I saw the photographs, I was just like, how? I mean, it didn't even compute in my mind. Like, how did you look at that and just say, oh, yeah, it's a suicide. Let's, wrap it up. 38 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, and I see that like on the documentaries I see on Netflix, like, I don't know if you watch Making the Murderer, like that's going through this whole thing. But also we don't know if that's like biased to the director and stuff. Like, you don't know if he's just showing his opinion, whatever. The staircase, you ever seen that one? There's a whole incident with, the forensics people weren't doing their job right and all this stuff on that one. And it's just like, what are you guys doing?
I mean, yeah, because this is literally people's lives. So, I see both sides. This is not only the victim's family, but the accused. Like, we don't want to accuse someone of something if they didn't do it. You're taking someone's freedom away. I mean, it's a high standard to take someone's freedom away. But also, I don't want somebody who's out a murderer walking the street either. So the job has to be done right every single time. And it has to be taken, the same amount of care each case, because look what your family had to go through. Yeah. Look at the fight that they had to go through. And some families don't have the resources, don't have the knowledge to go through, and fight. And had, the police got their way, she'd still be walking the streets.
Yeah, exactly. And all because of, they wanted to go home, or they were lazy, or whatever it could have been, or they were
not
just
trained.
Yeah, not trained, not knowledgeable in what they were doing. Like the coroner just didn't even do his own thing. He listened to what someone told him. Right. And
he was there for a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
And he himself on the stand admitted that he made a mistake. But, and humans make mistakes. Don't get me wrong. No matter what your profession is, you're going to make mistakes. But the fact that every cop that walked in that crime scene made a mistake, the coroner, the cops, even after, when they were like, hey, this is going on and here's this evidence, they were just kind of like, oh, yeah, well, it's a suicide. So whatever. And I understand that people are going to make mistakes, but in this profession, you really need to do your best every time. And that was not good police work. It just wasn't.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, like mistakes, you're just kind of, I don't know. That just seemed more of a mistake to me. That just seemed like they weren't even trying. So what else are you kind of like interested in? Does this take up a lot of your time? Like,
oh Lord. So I have 2 kids. I'm married. I have a ton of animals. I volunteer with an organization here that helps victims of sex trafficking, human trafficking. So I'm pretty busy most of the time. Yeah. the podcast. And, on the side, I do represent families here locally. Some that I haven't covered on the podcast. Like, I've never covered Jessica's case. My friend Heather from Big Mad True Crime did. So she covered that case extensively, and I'm a little too close to it to be trying to do it on a podcast. So I work with her family. There's a couple other families I work with here. So yeah, I like to stay busy. And I just that's why the podcast came about. It was like making my two worlds collide. So, there's a lot of knowledge that I've gained from working with families that I would like to pass on and make families feel like they're not so alone, and make, people who support them understand, how they can support them and the things that can be done. Because, when there's a murder, a missing person, any of those types of things, sometimes, and most of the time, families don't know what to do because they've never faced that before. So that's what I hope with the podcast, is to bring awareness of what can be done, to shed light on cases that aren't as well known. So I don't try to cover big, huge cases, because we know all those things. But there are so many cases out there that don't get attention and people don't know about.
Yeah. And I like what you say at the end. You always say, like, if you see something, say something.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And yeah, because there's so many cases that could be solved with just that one little bit of information, and someone's scared or doesn't know where to go with it. So that's another thing, that being a victim advocate here, I just talk to the people who are victims and bring them to the police. That's what it comes down to, is to be a liaison, because it's intimidating to go talk to a police officer if that's not what you're used to doing. So, it's nothing for me, but I've worked with them before.
Right.
For someone who is a victim, it's scary, because are you going to be believed? And I'll tell you right now, I've been in a situation with someone, and the cop didn't want to go there, and just kind of made some really derogatory comments. I said, we're done here. And we went to a different agency. So, but people don't understand that they have those options. Like, if the police department's not helping you, do you have a sheriff's department? Because you can go there too. So there's so many options that people aren't aware of. And I want to make people aware, because no one should be a victim of a crime and someone not be held responsible.
Yeah, it's tough. And, I see a lot of videos. I think a big thing nowadays is, especially I see on TikTok, is like, they'll make these videos where like this man is like beating his girlfriend, like, and it's all an act, right? And they do it in public to see if anyone says anything. And you just see people watching. You just see people watching.
Right. And no one does.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're desensitized to that. We just are. And we don't want to get involved. Nobody wants to get in anybody's business. But when someone's life is at stake, I don't think we have a choice. As humans of the universe, like, not even, just a regular person. If that was me that was getting beat, if that was your kid, that's how you have to think, because somebody's got to protect them. And if you're in that position, don't get yourself hurt, but call 911. Like, how hard is that?
I remember I was in a position one time, me and my wife were walking down the Wildwood boardwalk, and, a white girl was walking towards us. And then this other black girl just came and just ripped her hair down and started just punching her and stuff like that. And I just kind of froze, because unfortunately, in the times that we're in, the first thing that entered my mind was like, if I pull this black girl off of her, is that going to be a race thing? Are people going to like hate me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, why is that the first thing that entered my mind?
Because of the media. Don't even get me started.
Oh, I know. And then, so by that time, someone else had already jumped in and broke them up and stuff like that. And, I don't know. I was just kind of mad at myself after that, because I'm very protective of my loved ones and my friends. And, I'm always watching out for them whenever we're out in public and stuff like that, even though they don't know. Even we're at our store. Like, I'm just walking around making sure I see things that they don't see.
Right.
But,
well, and I think in this time that we live with, it's got to be black or white or Democrat or Republican or male or female, and you have to pick a side. It's so frustrating, because I just want to love everybody and I just want to help everybody. And the fact that has to enter our minds. But then with people of color, they have to think about that too. Yeah. Like, they get profiled. And so it's just, I just want everybody to love each other. And I don't know what the solution to that is. Besides each one of us just making up our minds that we're going to be those people. and we're going to help people regardless. I mean, I truly believe that we're the answer. The media is not the answer. Our government's not the answer.
Right.
It never has been. We are. So if we continue to push this agenda and continue to fight amongst each other, I mean, nothing's going to change. You can elect whoever you want. You can, it could be all Republican if that's the way you feel, or all Democrat. And if our hearts haven't changed, I mean, what's the difference? There's just a different guy in office.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the media and the government's agenda has been. They can preach unity all they want, but they want division. It brings them money, it brings them power, and it's up to, like you said, it's up to us to, come together and just let's not worry about that. You know what I mean? Let's worry about, there's bigger things at hand that really go on in this world than us disagreeing with each other with things. Like, let's stop picking one side or the other. And let's talk about something that we agree about, and let's, we have the freedoms that we do in this country for a certain reason. Right.
And we agree on more things than we don't. I don't think people realize that, because everybody picks those hot button issues that, is going to divide people. We agree on a whole lot more than we don't. And so I don't understand this huge division, and I hate division, and I hate trying to be one side or the other, because even politically, I'm kind of like a hybrid. Like, I don't agree fully with either side. So I hate being put in the middle. I hate being put in the middle of it's black versus white. It's, rich versus poor. I'm just one of those people who loves everybody, regardless. If you're a good person, and I say, if you're a good person, I love everybody. Okay. I just do. I mean, obviously not murders and, crazy stuff like that. I pray a lot, but that's not happened for me yet. But I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus, and he loved everyone. And he didn't say, the Good Samaritan is the perfect example. We don't have to be the same to love each other. We don't have to be the same to serve each other. I don't need to know your politics to take care of you. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're brown. You could be frickin' purple for all I care. But you're human. And so you deserve the same amount of respect that I do. So I hate division. Division is like one of my probably top 10 pet peeves. There's someone says, you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. No, I'm not. Like, I'm neither. It's not.
Right, exactly. Like, I'm pretty much in the middle too. I vote one way, but my beliefs are in the middle. And like you said, like someone was talking about, they were kind of like being judgy about something that someone was wearing at church. And I was just,
oh Lord,
yeah, I was like, are we really doing this? You know what I mean? Jesus got on his knees and cleaned like a prostitute's feet.
Right.
And you're worried about someone wearing cut up jeans in church?
Right.
I was like, what are we doing?
Like, yeah. And then how welcoming is that? Like, is that what Jesus would do? Because it's not. I mean, if you look at even his friends, the disciples were fishermen. Do you know any fishermen? Because I know some fishermen, and they're not, the priest.
Right.
They're a little rough around the edges, and I love them for it, but they are. And I think, that's why, to bring up the organization I volunteer with, it's called Rahab's Haven, and it's for victims of trafficking. And that's what they do. They just love you where you are. So, and they're not affiliated with a church. They're their own thing. But it's Jesus centered. And our mission is just to serve people where they are. I mean, some of the people we come across are street people, they're homeless, they're this, they're that. But those are the people Jesus loved. And those are the people that Jesus served. And so that's just like my favorite thing about it. And for the longest, I was just out there doing it on my own, like rogue. I was just, in the streets in my car by myself, feeding people and
wow,
getting people into treatment. But then I met this crazy church lady, and it's actually her street name. And she had the same heart and the same passion and no judgment, because I'm not a judgmental person. And I think judgments are, you don't know somebody's story. You don't know how they ended up there. You don't know what's really going on, especially just passing someone in the street. And so, judgments are for the birds, man.
Yeah, it's just a waste of time, really. Until you get to know that person, don't judge them until you get to know them, and then you can make your decision. you know?
Right. Right. Some of the best people I've met in my life have been homeless. And
Yeah,
I
there
mean,
you
I
go.
think that would shock people, but they have the biggest hearts and
Mm.
they're humble and they have no pretenses. Like they don't judge you. Um, and they're just, those are my people, man. And it hurts a lot when I see somebody judge that, or, you know, someone who has had a former life or is a prostitute. You know, a lot of the people I work with, it is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
but they're still people. And to watch them, they're some of the most amazing people you've ever met. I
Right.
mean, you would not know that because we don't give them the time of day. We walk right on by.
That's one of the parts that I disliked. You know, I grew up in church my whole life, and it's one of the things that really took me away from it, and didn't hinder my beliefs at all. I'm actually stronger in my faith than I've ever been in my life. You
Right.
know, I just don't really attend church right now, and I think it's just because of that, because of the stuff that you preach and you talk about in church and all these people, you know, gathering and acting all happy, and but then you leave and you're someone completely different. You know, that's not everyone, but I've just seen it a lot in my life, and I don't know. I just don't want myself to be around those people. You know, just
Right.
because I'm real, I'm the same everywhere you see me.
Same. I get a lot of crap for that. Like I'm the same here. I'll be the same when I'm at the church. I'll be the same when I'm on the street. And so I'm not your typical cookie cutter Christian. Like
Yeah.
I'm not there every time the door is open. I'm not going to pretend that I am.
Right.
I have a deep love for Jesus,
Yeah,
not
same.
the church.
Yeah.
I love the church. I love the church people, but I'm a follower of Jesus, not a church.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not even real picky on denomination, just the Bible, man. Like we make things way too complicated. I mean, you got John 3:16, you got
Yeah.
Matthew 25:40, you got the whole thing down. You know, love Jesus, love each other. That's it.
Right. Yeah, 100%. You know, I mean, it's a lot harder than it look or sounds, but you know, I think it's something that we all have to do. And I'll tell you one thing, you know, getting older and reading the Bible more and talking to God more, like I've just become a nicer person. I grew up with a lot of anger, and I don't know. I just have a lot more care for people than I used to.
Oh, I was a garbage person when I was like a teenager and
Really?
like young 20s. Oh my God. Judgmental, like drunk all the time, partying. I was
Right.
married at 18. So I
Oh,
did it
wow.
with my husband, but we like partied. I was one of those people. It's so funny because I help people get into rehab now, but I would walk past a drug addict and that's exactly what I would think they were. Look at that. Like, I mean, what is wrong with you? Why can't you get yourself together? And I too was raised in church. I was raised Southern Baptist through and through.
Mm-hmm.
And I still turned out that way. I mean, I was garbage, man. I wouldn't even like me. Like if I knew me now, I'd be like,
Yeah.
that girl, And it wasn't until I started to look into my own family. People in my own family suffered from addiction problems.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing the actual struggle, people don't understand that. They think, you know, just stop. Well, if they could just stop, they would.
Yeah.
They can't. They need help. And so it's been a complete turnaround for me. Thank God. And I think I really got serious about Jesus then. And these were the people that he called us to serve. It was the least of these. That's the name of the podcast. That's why.
Oh, wow.
That's why it's named that. Because it was, and I was that person. I mean, I was a person. I'm telling you, I couldn't have stood myself. I probably would have knocked myself out, honestly. Like, it's so crazy to look back now and know that I was that person. But I mean, I'm an honest person. I'm an open book. I haven't always been, you know, who I am today. And I think those things did, like having that perspective and then having my eyes completely opened, because that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, that's the exact same thing happened to me. And, you know, growing up in church, I'm sure you wanted to just like push it away. No, I don't want any part of that. For the longest time, you know, I was doing that. And then finally, I think I was like 28 years old, and I'm 31 now. And I think out of nowhere, I just made that change. I was just like, all right, God, I'm tired of trying to do everything myself.
Mhm.
I'm just going to give it to you. And then ever
Right.
since then, my heart has just been full of love and less hate. And even though everything that's going on with the government and all that kind of stuff now with this like virus and whatever, I'm always looking at the positive. I'm always looking at the bright side of things, and making sure my wife stays happy and that she's okay. She suffers from epilepsy, and she's dealing with like the anxieties of this virus too. And I'm just trying to reassure her, hey, babe, I got you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, as long as we're together, as long as we got God, like, we're good.
Solid.
So it's just that kind of thing. It's just, I have no worries. I have no stress because I know God's got me. And, going through all the things I've been through in my life and being where I'm at now, I'm happy where I'm at now. I have things that I'm shooting for. I would love to grow the podcast. I would love to grow my business that I started, and I don't know, just see where it takes me.
Right. And I'm not perfect, and I'm nowhere close to where I want to be, but I'm
Right.
a hell of a lot better than I used to be.
Oh, right.
And so it was a heart change for me. It sounds like that's what it was for you too. It was just, he just opened my eyes to see people the way he saw them and to care the way that he cared. And like you said, I used to stress about politics. I used to stress about the news.
Mm-hmm.
I used to stress about all those things, but ultimately none of that matters. I mean, it does, but it doesn't.
Right.
It's up to us. It's up to us to be good humans. It's up to us to love each other. That's what he called us to do. So if we can just do that, the rest of it will fall into place. And I truly believe that. So I don't stress about that kind of stuff. I do stress about my families.
Yeah.
I do stress about my cases.
Right.
But I do, and I pray over my families all the time, regardless of their beliefs. My belief is, and if I love you, I'm going to pray for you. So, I mean, you're just kind of stuck with that. And I think people know that when they get me.
Yeah. Do a lot of your families, are they like, have a sort of like religion? Do they have any kind of beliefs or anything like that? Or do they do a lot of praying?
A lot of my families are Christian, mostly. A lot of
Wow.
them are. There are a couple that aren't. But yeah, we do. And some of my families, Jessica's mom, she's very, very, very in touch with God, and we pray together. And she'll send me a little text. She actually prays. She'll pray for me, which is just like, she's the best. Like, that's the thing. That's the thing about this whole thing, is like getting to know the families, and you develop this unique relationship. Like, some of these people I've never met in person, but we're on the phone together, days and days and days. And you get a certain level of closeness that you don't get generally. I mean, when
Yeah.
you're not working on something like this is the most vulnerable thing in their life. This is their child, their mother, their brother. This is their loved one, and they have to just lay it all out there. So there's a certain level of trust that I still take to heart every time, that someone is trusting me with that story. Someone is trusting me with this case file. Someone is trusting me to look over this. And so I take that very seriously. I take my job super seriously. I would never want to be a person who just tells a story for fun.
Yeah.
This isn't fun sometimes. I
Right.
mean, I love this, but it's not fun all the time. There are times that we have fun. My families are amazing, but it's not something I do because this is a hobby of mine. My passion is to tell the stories. It's my passion to help families.
Mm-hmm.
And I am the least public person you would ever meet. So the fact that I even
Yeah.
have a podcast is like, sometimes I do laugh at God, because of all the things I would have asked for, this was not it. I can't believe how much I love it now. But, there was a long time everybody was saying, you should do this. This would be a great way to like integrate both of your passions and bring things together, because you're already working on these cases. So why not tell the story and help others too? So that's where it came from. But I was like, oh no, like that means I got to talk to folks. Like that means I got to be public. I can't do that. But I mean, it was very prayerfully done. And I knew that, you know, for instance, in Jake's case, not only do I think, you guys having the truth of what happened out helped heal the family. You know, I've spoken to certain people in the family who do feel like that helped, them heal, because the truth of the story is out, because courtrooms and all that, it's so cold and it's so this, XYZ. And I don't try to be that way, but it's also helped other families. Other families don't feel so alone. Other families know what to look for and know that they could get a private investigator. It helps more people. And so that was amazing, because I mean, there you go. And even, Mercedes' case, she's missing, and some of the things that her family has done to help find her, other people that I've worked with have decided, that they're going to try that too. Maybe it would help in their case. So it's just about, helping as many people as you can. And I can't take every case, and I can't take every family. So if I can share the story of what was done and what we did, maybe that can help someone, 5 years from now, a week from now. Like, I don't know. Cause I mean, I'm only one person, but if we can tell the story and we can give you clues and hints of what you can do to help, then we're able to help in that way.
So I like that, a lot of these families do pray, because I would assume, when you have someone, especially your kid, go missing, that you just ask why, and I'm sure they have.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's, as strong as I think I am, I know if that would happen, if I had a child and they went missing like that, there's no way I wouldn't ask why.
A huge test of faith.
It is. I was actually watching something the other day, and this kid was asking a biblical guy that was speaking, and then he was taking questions from the audience, and the kid asked, well, if God's real, why are people getting murdered and raped and stolen and stuff like that? And the guy just went quiet, and he didn't know how to explain it, and I think that's tough on his part, but if he's up there speaking, he's better come up with something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that's the toughest question, but we live in a fallen world. I mean, we live in a fallen world, and God's not this person that's, up there controlling every choice. We have personal choices. People make their own choices. He gave us that free will,
right,
which is both a blessing and a curse. And I think sometimes, I mean, I don't want to take that question either, because that's a hard one. But for me, it's a fallen world, and this is not a permanent home. And that's tough, man. That's tough to think about, because, that's your baby that's gone, or that's, your loved one that's murdered, but we were never meant to be here anyway. We're here for a short time, and that's it. This isn't our home. So it's a tough one. And but if you're biblical up there talking, you should probably have a better answer.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I don't know why. I can't answer that. He has his reasons,
right,
and he does allow things to happen sometimes that I even blow my mind. But I know that he loves us, and I know that there has to be something behind it.
Right. And I think that is the answer that I would say too. Like what you said, we do have that free will, and it's a blessing and a curse. And, if everything was meant to be perfect, we wouldn't even be here, because he would have just taken everyone up with him already. Right.
And we live in, I see the best of this world and the worst of this world at the same time.
Yeah.
And, it amazes me sometimes how dark things can be, but then I'm amazed too at the light, because there are some amazing people in this world. I mean, there are just some people that you're just like, man, like, I don't even know where you came from. Like, you just fell down from heaven. And then, you have evil people. So I don't know, man, it's tough, but I know that he loves us, and I know that he has a purpose for everyone. And that's just what I hang my hope on. I mean, my life hasn't been perfect, and there's been times where I've questioned why he's allowed things to happen to me.
Right.
But nothing compared to a missing child. I honestly don't know if there's anything worse, because at least when someone is murdered, you have answers, right? They're not coming back.
Right.
when your baby's missing, you don't know.
Right.
Every day you're on this roller coaster. I've talked about the roller coaster from hell before. It really is hell. It's today, she's alive. Nope, she's gone. Nope, there's hope. Nope, that hope's gone. And you take this ride through hell and twists and turns and highs and lows, and you end up right in the same freaking position you were in. You don't have the answer. You don't have your baby. And I think that's so hard. And it's so hard. What do you say? There's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can do. All I can do is look. And that's it. And that's why I say, if you know something, say something.
Yeah.
Because there are so many families out there that one little piece of information, that you don't, you might not think it's that big of a deal, but it could put together a puzzle, and it could bring someone closure, or it could bring someone home. And regardless, every family that's missing a child deserves one of those two things. Child, adult, I don't care who's missing. They deserve closure. They deserve their loved one.
Exactly. The one thing I was gonna ask you, because I have seen, a couple like articles kind of like hidden down in the media, and over top of all the coronavirus stuff, and the political stuff, and you do see some human trafficking, and I see that it's actually growing now because no one's really paying attention to it.
It's huge, and it happens right underneath our nose. Like, it's not this big scary guy in the street like everyone thinks. Like, they're just going to abduct you off the street. In children's cases, 40% of children who were trafficked by someone who they knew and who was the guardian. So it's happening at baseball games. It's happening right in front of you. And I think it's so important for people to be aware. The organization that I volunteer with, Rahab's Haven, they have 3 main points. The first one is awareness. And we have things here, and this is just local here in Albany, Georgia, but there's organizations like ours all over. They will teach you what the signs are, what to look for, because in this country, in the United States alone, only 1% of trafficking is reported. That's 1%.
Wow.
So there's a whole 99% out there that we don't even know. We don't know who these victims are. And a lot of them are children. I mean, it's awful to think, and it's awful to think what these people go through. So the second point that we do is outreach, and that's just loving on, victims, girls that are at risk. There's Bible studies. We go on the streets and feed them. We like to cater to the whole woman. So she needs clothes, food, hygiene items, love, most importantly, love, because, that's the trafficker's weapon, is to make them feel like they're not worthy, they're not wanted, and they're not worth love. So we have to make them see that they're beautiful, they're worth it, and that in God's eyes, they're perfect. So that's the outreach part. And then the restoration part. So we do rescues. I mean, it's nothing that I could specifically talk about because I would never want to put one of our girls in danger, but they are taken from here and they are taken somewhere to heal, away from here. So that's been a huge blessing to me, to be able to see that and see it come full circle and see girls rescued.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. And like I see videos too of like women being taken from like parking lots, and like women, children, stuff like that, and that's the good thing about social media, because there's good stuff that people show you, like, hey, this is how you can tell if someone's not doing okay. Like, there's a little trick with your cell phone that you do, when you put it on the floor or something like that. And then seeing the zip ties on your car and stuff like that, how that's a trick where if you see that, just run away or go back in the store.
Right. And so the other thing people can do is there's free training online. You can go to onwatch.org, and it teaches you what to look for with sex trafficking, because there are certain things you can look for. We could talk about that all night. So yeah. If you're interested, I would suggest that anyone would go to onwatch.org. It's completely free. And if you're not sure, if something just feels off, report it, because I would rather you be wrong 100 times than be right and not report it just the once. because you may be the only person that lays eyes on that girl or that child or that man. I mean, men are trafficked too. It's much lower, but they are. And so that's one of the things people don't look out for. You know, being wrong and having a cop show up and, you know, everything's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But being right and not calling because you're afraid and that girl is taken, I mean, it's not worth it to me at all.
Not at all.
So if you suspect it, just call. I mean, they're not going to be mad, and don't put yourself in a dangerous situation. If you suspect it, call, leave the area and then call. Whatever you feel comfortable doing, because it is a huge problem in this country, and I don't think a lot of people are aware.
Yeah.
Because here in Albany, I did not know the extent of it.
Yeah.
And it's huge here, and it's huge everywhere. It's not just here.
Yeah, and one good thing that I've seen is that Ashton Kutcher is like a huge, you know, person doing something about it, where you see celebrities now just making stupid videos and just running their mouth and not really doing anything about anything. But he's putting, you know, all his heart and soul into something like this and making a huge difference. So that's pretty cool to see.
It is amazing when we see people like that step up, because they have a huge platform and a huge voice, and then they're actually, you know, putting action behind it. Because you can say all the words you want to say. I mean, we can sit here and have this conversation, but somebody's got to go out in the street and get the girls.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love what I do.
Exactly. Well, Leah, I thank you for coming on, and it was fun talking to you. Yeah,
it was a good time.
Tell everyone where they could find your podcast and Instagram and stuff like that.
So Least of These, you can search it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. You can also search Big Mad Media, because I officially signed last week with Heather and Kyle over at Big Mad Media. I have a Facebook page at Least of These, and my Instagram is least_of_these. And if you would like to support my mission and help women who are being trafficked, you can go to Rahab's Haven. It's Rahab's Haven Albany. Just search it out, or there's a Facebook page, and you can make donations through PayPal. So I don't make any money off the podcast right now. I don't have a Patreon, but if you guys wanted to support me, I would be 100% down with the proceeds going there. Well, thank you. This is fun.
Yeah, definitely.
And we should do this again when, you know, we got a big case or something.
Yeah, there you go.
If you're down, I'm down.
I'm down. Yeah.
Alrighty, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.